Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is staff writer Zach Everson. Zach, appreciate you coming on.
Always a pleasure, Brittany. How are you?
Good, thank you. You are here to provide an update on a story from 2 months ago where you reported that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was under investigation by the House Ethics Committee. What can you tell us?
When the House Ethics Committee first made public that it was investigating AOC, it was a very cryptic message that just said it was voting to it had voted to move to continue the examination into the congressperson, or excuse me, the matter is the phrase they used. They didn't say what the subject was. They didn't say when the investigation began, and they just said they would update at a later date after the new Congress, and after the committee forms in the new Congress and has its first meeting, and that hasn't happened yet. But of course, most of the speculation immediately went to her high-profile appearance at the Met Gala, famously wearing that dress, "Tax the Rich." I spent some time going through documents of another New York Democrat who had similarly faced an ethics investigation for her appearance at the Met Gala. And Carolyn Maloney, she's no longer in Congress. If you go through her investigation, which has been released, you can find a lot of differences between her circumstances and AOC's that really stand out as things that the ethics committee is going to have an interest in with regard to AOC.
Let us know those differences. What stands out to you from AOC's compared to Carolyn Maloney's? And does it matter that Carolyn Maloney is no longer a member of Congress?
Sure. So what mattered with Maloney no longer being a member of Congress and that she lost in a primary, that's the reason her report is public and AOC's is not. There are rules about when they can release an ethics investigation, and they're not allowed to do it within a certain amount of days of an election. And since Maloney lost in a primary, she didn't have to worry about that general election blackout that did benefit AOC in keeping this under wraps for a little bit longer. Maloney got busted for having requested a ticket and then accepted one to the gala. There's no evidence that is what AOC did, or spokespeople said she was invited. But if you look through the footnotes and a lot of the small details about the investigation, where the investigators talk about what they were looking for, a few things stand out. One of them is that they asked for and received receipts for Maloney's dress, makeup, and hair for all 3 years that she went to the gala, including the year that she rented her dress. Now, AOC, the morning after the gala that she went in 2021, posted that she had borrowed the dress. Well, it's in the hairstyling and makeup also, according to videos, was provided by people working with Vogue. And, I reached out to those people asking, was any money exchanged? Are there receipts? I didn't hear back from anybody. But so it sounds like the investigators are going to be interested to see if Ocasio-Cortez has receipts for those items. And based on the evidence that's out there publicly, she doesn't. She was the one who said she borrowed this dress. Maloney rented a dress for a night. And, what's the difference between borrowing a dress and a free rental? And both AOC and the designer, Aurora James of Brother Vellies, said that they worked together to some extent on this dress. So this is not like it's some random dress that was hanging in somebody's closet that she just borrowed and took out. I mean, this was couture designed for her and with her to wear to this event. So I think those are issues that the House Ethics Committee is really going to be interested in.
From what you're explaining, it sounds like she kind of waded into murky waters here. Obviously, they're not allowed to accept gifts, but what is the policy on borrowing?
Well, government watchdog told us flat out, like, they're not, borrowing is the same as gift. I mean, otherwise you could just borrow things endlessly. And, I had another ethics law professor specializing in government ethics, Kathleen Clark at St. Louis, or Washington University in St. Louis, went through the rules and said, like, I can't find an exception that applies to what AOC did here. So it certainly seems like it's a freebie. And I think in this instance, it something the committee is looking at.
Her dress said, obviously, tax the rich, and this was one of the most talked about moments from the Met Gala. Do you think if she chose a different, more subdued wardrobe choice, she wouldn't be investigated?
No. AOC can sneeze and you're going to find 4 conservative leaning watchdogs that would file a complaint about it. So The Office of Congressional Ethics, which started this inquiry, they were going to get a heads up no matter what she does. And if you look, as I was looking through other possibilities of what the ethics panel could be looking at for her, there were several other inquiries, but most of them just didn't even seem like they'd rise up to anything that could be a violation. I mean, some of them seemed like flat out nonsense. So I don't think anything, she's high profile no matter what she does. If she was just wearing any old dress, she certainly still would have been hit with it. And there are other concerns. The dress is not the only thing that it sounds like investigators are looking at based on the Maloney report.
When will we figure out the full scope of the investigation?
Who knows? It has to happen after the House Ethics Panel meets for the first time and sets its rules. And they haven't done that yet. So it's not clear exactly when they are going to meet. It appears that they'd have to do it. So sometime within a month after that first meeting is probably when they would have to put out the full report, similar to what they did with Maloney.
The Met is one of the most glamorous nights of the year. I actually live in New York City, and I can attest to that. I mean, anyone who is anyone in the wealthy / celebrity space is there. Anyone ranging from the fashion industry, the Kardashians, sports icons, those people. And tickets reportedly go for $35,000 a pop. So why was she even there? What was AOC's reasoning behind attending the event?
Well, in that Instagram post, she wrote that she was there somewhat providing constituent services, dealing with New York political officials' responsibility for overseeing the city's cultural institutions. And, one of the watchdogs we talked to said, that's crap, basically. Constituent services is helping a nonprofit apply for a grant or something along those lines. But that is a good question. What was she doing there? Looking through the photos and of people who've attended the Met over the years. In the Maloney report, there were a couple exhibits that showed guest lists of government officials. Congress people don't go. They do invite the mayor, members of the city council, some other local officials, but it's very rare to see a congressperson there. I went through I think it was 182 pictures that Vogue posted of 2021 attendees and on the red carpet. And the only other congressperson there was Maloney. And going back through searches of didn't find anything. The only other active lawmaker I found to have attended was Hillary Clinton in 2001. And that's it. And, I asked AOC's people, I asked the Met if they could provide me the names of any other Congress people who've attended, and they couldn't. I reached out to New York lawmakers. The ones that responded also said they hadn't been there.
A funny sidebar of you reaching out to people is you reached out to the congressman who has been in hot water recently, George Santos. What has he said?
Sure. So, it was an interesting question to ask, not just Representative Santos, but the other members of New York congressional delegation who are freshmen, because they wouldn't have been members of Congress when there was a previous Met Gala. But I asked anyways, just to see if they've ever been invited, if they've been invited this year, if invited, would they accept? And Representative Santos's office got back to me saying that if Ms. Wintour was to invite him, he would accept as long as he could bring Bowen Yang as his date. Bowen Yang famously plays Representative Santos on Saturday Night Live.
Was this a joke or serious?
I will reach out to Bowen Yang and find out what his opinion is.
Great. And what is the response when members of Congress go to these types of events, specifically the Met, because only AOC and Carolyn Maloney went?
Right. And the Met Gala really stands out compared to other events. I mean, Donald Trump, for example, had a fundraiser at Kentucky Derby. And, as a Louisvillian for several years, Derby is our Met Gala. And it certainly attracts all sorts of celebrities. Tom Brady's a regular. But, Trump had this event and lawmakers went, and you didn't see the outcry over who went there, who paid for it, who paid for their hat or anything like that. So, could be another matter that the ethics committee might want to look at.
And AOC
but it does not compare to the Met Gala. Sorry.
Sure, no. AOC did say she was invited. So is this considered a gift as well? Because like we said, it's $35,000 reportedly to get in there.
It could be. There's certainly some ways they can get invited to events like this. There is a charitable event exception to the gift rule that allows them to be invited by a charity and accept it. One of the issues here, though, and that's been questioned by a government watchdog, is who actually invited her? Was it the Met Gala or was it Condé Nast, which puts it on? I mean, Anna Wintour runs the event, and Condé Nast employs a lobbyist. So did she get invited by the Met's Costume Institute, a nonprofit, or did the invite actually come from Condé Nast? And even if the invite did say, was on Met Gala letterhead, is that still like legit, or is that just an easy way to cover it up by, sending an invite to an expensive event that a firm that lobbies is throwing, but having it on nonprofit letterhead? The equivalent that this watchdog gave me was it would be as if like the National Football League Players Association, a nonprofit, was throwing a big party at the Super Bowl and invited lawmakers down there, for its fundraiser at a suite, on the 50-yard line.
Got it. And to put this into context for people, you always break down what this is like. Is this a slap on the wrist, something more serious? Will she be able to just dust this off?
The ethics committee famously does not like to reprimand its own. The committee is made up of an equal number of Democrats and Republicans. They did issue sanctions on Madison Cawthorn as he was on his way out the door, but he wasn't really that well liked on Capitol Hill anyway after his comment about orgies and cocaine. And he was on his way out, so he wasn't going to be returning, so he wasn't a colleague. I'm not sure what's going to happen, if anything. One of the watchdogs I spoke with said, they famously do not like to reprimand their colleagues and friends. So we'll see. I don't think there'd be anything serious. She might be forced to repay the cost of some of the what she took. That would be what Madison Cawthorn was hit for. They found he had ill-gotten gains, so they made him repay what they determined he should not have taken home. So they may go ahead and say that AOC should have to pay for a dress rental, hairstyling, and all of that sort of stuff. But we'll see. We'll get the report in about a month after the committee meets for the first time. But even then, we may not have a resolution into what consequences she'll face, if any.
Looking to the next Met Gala, do we think that we could see any lawmakers on the carpet the next time? Her with a loud dress? Anyone similar?
Well, I mean, maybe George Santos and Bowen Yang. That would certainly turn heads. I would say no. I think if you're a congressperson, you'd look at what's happened here and want to stay away from it. That said, some of the ones I responded to said, if they were invited, they'd consider it. That is one of the options that members of Congress have, is that when they get invitations to events like this, they can ask up front for guidance from the ethics committee and say, hey, I was invited to this. Like, is this legit? What can I do? What can I do? I asked the AOC spokesperson if she had taken those steps, and they didn't answer that. They said due to the investigation, they were going to not discuss it other than to say that they had cooperated with it. So that's certainly an option. I mean, if I were a member of Congress and I was invited, which neither of those will ever happen, I would go to the ethics committee and, I'd be at their place every day saying, all right, here's what I got invited to. Run this, let me run this by you and see what your thoughts are. So it's a possibility, but it seems remote.
Yeah, I would be in there every day as well. It sounds like an easy cheat sheet for members of Congress. So, they don't find themselves at the center of conversations like we're having here.
Exactly.
Zach Everson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany.